Hi everyone, before you dive into the episode, I just wanted to interrupt really quickly. You're gonna dive into this episode and you're gonna hear me call this podcast the Holistic Hustle Podcast. And that is because it used to be the old name of this podcast. And it was an amazing ride. I'm so grateful for the Holistic Hustle Podcast and what it served. But recently I've decided to rebrand the podcast based off the evolution of my own journey, my own story, and where God is calling me to go next. And so now the rebrand, which you may know already, is called Wisdom is Wealth. Didn't want you to be confused, so dive into this episode. They were an amazing episode, amazing guests, amazing insights, and enjoy.
Well, here's the deal. So authors are chosen to speak and get paid to speak 80% more than people who don't have a book.
Hi, I'm Justin Buonamo, and this is Holistic Hustle. Holistic Hustle is doing things for the right reasons, working hard for the right reasons. The healthy balance of what work and progression and accomplishment and success should actually look like. Welcome back to another episode of the Holistic Hustle Podcast with Justin Buonamo. I have my dear friend Sara Connell with us today, who is a 5-time best-selling author and the founder of the Thought Leader Academy, where she helps coaches and experts and entrepreneurs scale impact and to 7 figures by becoming best-selling authors and in-demand speakers. She's been featured on Oprah, in the New York Times, Forbes, Entrepreneur, TEDx, Good Morning America, and Today. And today here, she is going to be an incredible guest for this audience, because if there is a woman that knows what she's talking about when it comes to writing a book for impact and for scale and booking speaking engagements and doing everything to get your voice out there, whether that's in written format or in vocal format, Sara Connell is the woman for you, especially the human being behind the expertise is top notch. And so Sara, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course. We're really excited because I feel like most people, whether they admit it or realize it or not, in the growth, the personal development space, business ownership space, like they want to write a book, whether it's been an idea or they want to do it down the road, or they're just big book fans in general. Or I often hear people want to speak too as well. They just want to get their message out there. And those mediums seem to be very popular ones. And so before we get into some advice for them, I'm really curious for my own situation or my own liking, if you will, like what inspired you to start writing and releasing your own books?
For sure. So I had a really interesting journey of I wanted to be a writer, and most of the people I work with that's not the fun part. Like they want to have a book and they want, the credibility and the visibility and the impact, but that doesn't sound as fun to them, but I really wanted to. And then I got the message along the way that I wasn't good enough to do that. Right. I kind of internalized that from people around me, authority figures. And so I went and got a job at this advertising agency. It was sort of creative adjacent to what I wanted to do. And unfortunately, it was just in the middle of the Me Too era, really toxic environment, abusive environment. And I spiraled. I don't know how many people watching, whether it was a relationship, a job, something where you just knew it wasn't the right thing for you. And then it got really bad. Right. And those are really tough experiences, whenever we're in them. And so I was going down the drain is how I felt it. Mental health, physical health, suffering. And I found a book in the Boston airport one day. I was flying back, dreading going back to the office in Chicago where I was working. And I found this book called Holy Hunger by Margaret Bullitt Jonas. And it was just the right book at the right time. She is not famous. She isn't like a national name, celebrity, but it was a woman who shared her story of this particular mental health crisis that she was in and all this trauma she hadn't dealt with, which was really what was at the root of me being in that job to begin with. And I read the book in one sitting. And by the end of the book, I resigned from the job. Like I said, I'm out, even if I'm living on the street. And I credit that job as saving my life. I truly credit that book, the book as saving my life from the job. And it taught me that the power of one person, whether you're speaking your story, sharing your story, making a video of your story, but not just your story, but the solution, right? And we'll get into this, Justin, of like what makes a book that's going to scale, impact, income, credibility, and a book that's just like a bucket list that's like, yay, I wrote a book, right? They're very different things. But that book put me on a new trajectory, and it gave me the courage I needed to get myself out of that situation and get help for my health and all of that. And I vowed basically to spend the rest of my life paying that gift forward. That's literally what happened.
That is so phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's so phenomenal. It's so like so many awesome pieces to that. But like the biggest thing is just you don't realize how impactful a book can be. right? There's some books on my bookshelf. I'm looking in front of me because I got two
Yeah.
bookshelves where it's just like, they literally changed my life. The words on the paper changed my life. And if that author didn't have the story to tell, the passion to tell it, maybe the support to get it out there, right? And the intent for it to actually impact,
Yeah.
who knows where some people would be. I'm a big fan of Robin Sharma. I love his books.
Yes.
I read them often, and they just have played such a big part
Right.
in my life. And one thing with Robin Sharma is that you could feel he really does want to impact through his words. And he's been impacted by other authors. A big part of his writing journey is his reading journey on the back end. And so I think that's phenomenal that was a book that caused you to not just leave your day job, but also start your own business too, as
Mhm.
well, to help
Sure.
people have the same impact that that author had on you. And
Yeah.
I love the industry of book writing. I love books. I have so many of them. I feel like I'm that meme where like I order new books and the books on my bookshelf that I haven't read yet are like side-eyeing me in those books. Like, wait, hold up. Right? Like I didn't get read yet. And so I love it. And I've been really interested in the writing book aspect after meeting you and talking to your team and people that have worked with you. But there's so much information out there. And so what is a popular piece of advice in the book writing industry that you don't necessarily agree with?
Yeah. I'll tell you my least favorite piece of advice. I've gone to no less than 3 like conferences where I've been invited to speak, and someone has also been there speaking. And their advice that they have given people is just write a crappy book. Like this is actually what people are saying. It's just like, oh, just to say you wrote a book, just write like, a quick, like take a weekend, slap something down on the page. And I disagree with that so deeply because, first of all, our readers deserve more. And also, nothing is going to be a lead magnet. If you want to write your book as a lead generator, which is a great thing to do, I highly recommend it. It needs to have quality and substance and be you, and like don't have AI write it for 10 minutes for you. People can tell the difference, right? So there's a lot of people offering this sort of just do a quick book. It doesn't matter if it sucks, just use it to say you have. I disagree completely. I believe, again, I want your book, Justin, the people listening to be in the airport bookstore when someone's having their worst day and actually, like Robin's books, change something for you. And it doesn't have to take a long time. We have people come in and write a book in a month. We have people come in and write it in 3 months. It doesn't have to be horribly like involved process. You're not writing War and Peace, but I do think that it's a real mistake and a real disservice both to the author and to the public for people to just kind of bucket list it.
So why is that advice? Is it just to get something out there to let it be a lead magnet? Like, because
Yes.
there's like
Yeah.
underlying motive?
Well, here's the deal. So authors are chosen to speak and get paid to speak 80% more than people who don't have a book. And so there's a feeling like if you're going to be a thought leader and a head of leader in your industry, a top coach, that you should have a book. Like there's a should around it. And I want anyone that feels that spark in them. Everybody knows, you have a book in you if you're listening, that like, if you feel that. But I want, I want people to get to do it with pride and to create something of themselves that they're proud of. The books will be here longer than we are. And so people advise people, oh, just write a book because it is a flag in the ground. It's fascinating. We have a 2.9 second attention span world. That's the stat right now. That's being like adults in the Western world have a 2.9 second attention span. So you're on your phone, squirrel, shiny object. Like we have reduced our brains to this. So why on earth would I be talking about writing a book as a good move? Well, here's why. Because, and this is where these people come into that advice that I don't agree with. The minute in under 2.9 seconds, in about 1 second, someone sees your name, your topic, and bestseller on that book, and they immediately ascribe authority, credibility, leadership, and success. They think if you wrote a book, and we help our authors make sure they're a best-selling book, right? So you write a bestseller and people are going to associate, it's a credential in our society, which is great. So some of these leaders are saying, oh, just write and then you can say you've got a good book. First of all, that book won't be a bestseller if it's, written in one day with like no, real substance. But also, it's again, it just it breaks the integrity that I know anyone listening, anyone's in your community, Justin, anyone's in our community. We want to help people. Like you said with Robin, you can tell he cares. Like you feel that author's love and caring. And our goal is to have someone not get past chapter 2 before they want to hire you. So you're not just writing any old book. You want someone to read to chapter 2 and go, oh, forget it. I'm going to read the rest of this, but I got to go message Justin's team. Like I need to get in. I need to figure out my money. I need to get my mindset organized. I need to have this shift and become profitable. Right. So you want to do an amazing book, but doesn't need to be pressure. Like you can get some help, whether it's through us or someone else, you can get some help on how to do that and do it quickly, but do it well.
Doing it well is so important. Like if it's worth doing well with anything in life. And ultimately the outcome that you get out of something, no matter what it is in life, writing a book or not, is based on or strongly correlated to the input that you put into it. Right. And so if your intentions going into writing a book is just to get it out there and don't really care if it impacts or serves, just trying to use it for these underlying motives, and like, teach their own, but you're probably going to get similar results correlated back to those intentions that you put in. But at the same time too, as well, it doesn't have to be quantum physics. You don't have to spend 10 years writing a book, and there is an effective and efficient way to go about it in a timely manner without sacrificing the intent and the quality behind it. And so I think that's a phenomenal point. And I think a big part of what your team does is what I saw was really helpful was you help people understand the 2 types of books you can write. I'm sure there's several, but you were starting to allude to it in the beginning of this episode. Would you mind breaking that down a little bit?
For sure. So, I mean, I'll just tell you my favorite, because I want to make sure everybody like walks away from this with something really meaty and tangible. So you can write your story. Like people say, I want to tell my story, kind of a memoir and, kind of lessons learned. And that can be great. It can be very inspiring, right? But the books I love right now for anyone who's a coach, an expert, an entrepreneur that wants to scale with a book and attract clients and make an impact and change lives is what we call the high converting thought leader book. And so basically what that entails is you are weaving in your personal story, but you're also weaving in the stories of the people you serve and the transformation you create for people. And then you're doing it in such a way that it doesn't feel, we've all read those books that are like infomercials, right? It's like, come to my webinar. And I won't name names, but I'm sure we've all encountered those books. And instead, what you want to do is bring your unique paradigm, your system, your lens, your, whatever your secret sauce, right? And that's what we help the people that want to have support around this. It's like, okay, you're an expert in this. How do we draw out your unique steps, pillars, framework? And you're going to take people, you're going to coach them through your book. You're going to actually take them through your process, and you're going to weave in storytelling, your own and the people you've served. And here's the key. You're going to embed an interactive experience somewhere early on in the book. This can be a quiz, an assessment, a template, a financial calculator, something cool that you've created that gives people a win. And that is going to be accessible through the book via a QR code or a link. And people will need to fill out their name and email in order to get that resource. It's an accompaniment piece to the book. Tony Robbins does this. The founder of Mind Valley, Vijay Lakhani, does this. Like all, top authors do this, because we all know we're going to read a book. We're not going to implement a lot of stuff in the book. We're going to get inspired. And then you want to be able to be in a 2-way relationship with that person through your book. So you create something exciting and valuable that is essentially an embedded lead magnet into your book early on. At that point, that person's no longer a reader. They're in a relationship with you. You can reach out, your team can reach out, you can nurture them, you can find out what they desire in life and how to help them get it, and be that trusted advisor immediately before they're even finished reading the book. And then whatever sales process anybody has, of course, that's the funnel that you create. So I love this method of blending storytelling, valuable strategic content, and an interactive experience. Those are our 3 winning ingredients to move people from reader to potential client that you can help get the big win that you're here to help people get.
So effective and so valuable. It's one of those things that you hear and you're like, oh, that's super simple, but it's because the person that taught it was super simple, or taught it in a super simple way. And so thank you for breaking it down that way. I love one of Einstein's quotes, I think it's Einstein, that says the smartest people on the planet can take very complex topics and make them very easy for people to understand and implement. And I think you just did that and do that constantly with the work with your clients. And so I often love the quote too as well that says it's simple, but it's not easy. And so it's simple because it's like, okay, well, what you just heard from Sarah, it's like everyone go out and write a book. You know what I mean? Like she made it sound so simple, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing that it sounds that you make it sound so simple. It's actually a good thing. But where it becomes not easy is because mental roadblocks, other people's opinions, paradigms that we have built up. And so what's a common roadblock you see people face when it comes to writing a book, and how do you help your clients overcome that? I'm sure you've got an array of them.
We do. We've got the greatest hits, but you know what? The overwhelm of the task, right? What am I writing? So that's kind of this content. Like I have, some of you have been decades into your craft, right? As an expert, and so it's like, how do I take all this stuff that I do and put it into, some kind of, structure that makes sense, chapters, and the time. People really get fearful about, understandably. People we work with are like probably Justin, you and I, we're parents, we're running multiple businesses in some cases, or at least one. You've got other responsibilities. We've got family. We have, self-care, working out. I mean, there's stuff, right? So how are you adding writing a book into an already jam-packed, highly intense in many cases schedule? And so we've got all our tricks, right? Like to how to have this happen in a really as easy as possible way. Like you said, in a couple of months, we try to, help people in under 3 months, put this together in a way you're not taking a sabbatical, going to a cabin in the woods, even though that sounds really fun. It's not, realistic for most of us. So the fear is first, just how do we find the time? And that's about us finding, same with money. I'm sure you do this with your clients. Someone's like, I want to hire someone. I want to take a trip. I want to buy the house. and it's like, there's always a way. There's always a way. And so we don't just leave people on their own to that. It's like, we look at their time, and we have a process around this time log where we can identify, here's how to plug it in. Here's where to plug it in. Here's the support we can have. And I've got all kinds of trips with dictating apps and transcription. And, I've worked out and written books while working out, like as a habit stack, like I'm on the treadmill writing my next chapter, and then how do we clean that, that up, and we pair everyone with an editor, and, there are things, right? So part of it is just that, how do I even get my mind around what this book would be? And then how do I find the time to do the work that would be involved? And then how do I bring it to market in a successful way? And I think if you're not a total nerd like I am, and you don't want to learn everything in the publishing industry, definitely don't do this alone, right? I think that I believe in hiring experts and coaches for anywhere where I want to create a big result. Like if I'm not the expert in that area, I'm working with someone who is, right? And so it is a lot. It is a lot to do on our own. And I don't recommend just, again, slapping a book up on Amazon and hoping something good will come. I think having a strategy is so crucially important to monetize the book, get a return on the investment. And then it's, the nice to have, it's a piece of your legacy.
Right. I think with the impact that books can have, not even just on the viewers, but like you individually too as well, coupled with the amount of resources that are needed to bring a quality one to fruition, it just makes a ton of sense to get help with it, and I'm big on hiring mentors as well. They just condense timeframes, right? So what you could accomplish maybe on your own in 5 years, the mentor is going to help you do it in 5 months, while also avoiding a whole bunch of unnecessary mistakes in the process. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of mistakes we need to make in life and business and our pursuits that God wants us to make, but there's a whole bunch of other mistakes that we don't have to technically make. Right. And having mentors to help you with that is super helpful, especially a complex type of situation like writing a book. Right. There's just a lot of things to consider. Right. But extremely fruitful and rewarding if you're able to take that journey, and to have somebody alongside of you that is an expert like you, I think is something I highly recommend. And so that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I know a lot of our viewers are very interested in writing their own book, right? Getting their message out there somehow, some way. And there's so much information on how to do it, right? Coupled with so many things and stories that we could tell ourselves to hold us back. And then also, if we do act on it, so many mistakes that we don't need to make. And so that's why I wanted to have you on here. As you could see to the audience, like, this woman knows what she's talking about. She's done it plenty of times for herself. She's got hundreds of very satisfied clients. Satisfied is not even a good word. Whatever is above satisfied, we're going to go with that. And it's just the proof is in the pudding, right? This is something that you want to do. Sarah's your girl. So Sarah, where can people find you and connect?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we would just absolutely love to support any of you that know it's like, I want to do this. Like you said, make the 5-year plan, the 5-month plan. So
Yeah.
on Instagram at Sara Connell, and I'm SaraConnell. And then Justin, I'll make sure you have for the show notes and everyone, we have a roadmap. If anyone just wants to put a toe in the water, right? It's a 7 steps to writing a revenue generating best-selling book. So people can kind of see a little bit more detail about what we talked about today, how then you go from even those 3 magic ingredients to structuring a book and thinking about what your content would be. And there's some really, really great pieces to get you started in there.
Incredible. Thank you for those resources. And one thing I do want to highlight before we wrap up here, Sara does such a beautiful job of balancing impact and income. Like in like talking about like we do want to have an income, but also at the end of the day, like we want to monetize this for good reasons, right? And I think the smartest people understand that impact or income, excuse me, is just a byproduct of impact. And so, Sara, you definitely had an incredible impact here today. And thank you for coming to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And thank you everyone for coming back to another episode of the Holistic Hustle podcast. As always, subscribe, download, and if you know somebody that would benefit from this message, please share this with them. It's a very popular topic, a very impactful topic, but also a very confusing topic. And to have somebody like Sara break it down this way is super helpful. So share, download, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.